Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. And we're back for another episode of our podcast this Wednesday morning. And we've got some exciting topics to cover with the primetime matchup between Nebraska and Colorado. We've got some five-star buzz about David Sanders, so we'll get into that and more. Before we do, please make sure you do us the huge favor if you haven't already and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It helps us and it helps other Nebraska fans find our content. So there's my spiel. And Danny, how you doing this morning?
Good. Prime time against prime time. What a bit of news to hear this week. And boy, that place is going to be rocking. Memorial Stadium is going to be rocking. And this is one of those many times while covering this team or writing about this team that I wish I lived in Nebraska. I may not have been able to get a ticket, but I would have just loved to be around the campus and be around the atmosphere on game day, because boy, that is going to be a fun time in September.
It is going to be a fun time, and let's start there. We'll open up the show with yeah, that's number one topic on my mind. Colorado and Nebraska, primetime, week 2 of the season on NBC. I know some people were talking about a big noon kickoff, but in Nebraska, people like playing primetime games. Some other programs don't necessarily, but I like the primetime atmosphere. Matt Rule on the radio last night said it was a good thing for college football, and I think it is going to be a good thing for college football, especially after we kick their ass, because that's what I think is going to happen. I hope that's what happens. That needs to be what happens after the payback last year and all the heartache that we've had over the last however many years. Nebraska, this is a must-win game to me. Nebraska has to show up. They have to get it done in this opportunity. If they don't, it's gonna set a bad a set a bad tone for the season. So to me, this is the tone-setting game for the 2024 Nebraska football season.
Yeah, it's a tone-setting game, and it'll be interesting to see who starts at quarterback for Nebraska. We all want Dylan Raiola, but will the coaching staff make him the outright starter? Will they sit him? I want Dylan Raiola to start against Shedeur Sanders. What a matchup that would be. And it'll be interesting to see, what the team looks like by the time, that matchup happens. And the stadium is going to be absolutely electric. I can remember the 2021 game against Michigan, also a night game, and the fans were going absolutely crazy. And, it was a great home environment. And I think this one will be even better, honestly. And I can safely assume that Nebraska legends and stars will also be in attendance at the game. So it's going to be a lot of eyes on Nebraska in this one. And, this is just going to have so many subplots. The games within the game, it's going to be a great time.
It will be a great time. Yeah, that 2021 Michigan game was a great atmosphere, but I agree. This is going to definitely go beyond that because, people really wanted to win that game. Obviously, being a ranked team and Nebraska really needed a win like that, which they still haven't gotten over a ranked team, I want to point out. But, this is a different rivalry. Nebraska, Colorado goes back to the Big 8 days, and there's true hatred between the two fan bases. There's a rivalry between Oklahoma and Nebraska. Like, there's no question about it. There's no love lost between Oklahoma and Nebraska fans. But I almost think that just the way that the rivalry kind of played out, there's almost worse blood between Nebraska and Colorado fans. And now with the whole Coach Prime thing, and it's just something that there really is a dislike between these two fan bases. And last year, Shedeur Sanders was the difference. Nebraska didn't have a quarterback. Colorado did. And now Nebraska does have a quarterback. So it's going to be really exciting to see. Dylan Raiola, I believe, will be the starter. I do think Harburg's going to play some. He's going to have some type of a role as a runner, a wildcat, or whatever. I think that it would be, a missed opportunity not to have him utilized in some sense. But yeah, this is going to be Dylan Raiola and Shedeur Sanders. It's interesting with Colorado in that they may have the two best individual players in college football, and Travis Hunter, and not the best in Shedeur Sanders, but the best quarterbacks. Two very high draft picks, but they don't have, the depth that Nebraska does. And that's going to be a very big test because that's a pretty important thing in college football. It is great to have those star players, but you also have to be really good from not just 1 to, 22, but like 1 to 40. That's where the Georgias and Alabamas wear you out over a 60-minute game.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see too, the Colorado defensive line against the Nebraska offensive line. I'm not overly concerned about Colorado's defensive line, and I do feel confident in Nebraska's offensive line. So that'll be an interesting matchup battle there, and it's just going to be so exciting just to again, the atmosphere, The fans will be ready. I mean, this is a game that they've had circled on their calendar for quite a while.
Yeah, and I know there was the Miami game when Miami came here after they beat Nebraska, and that was a huge moment for the crowd, and that was a really pumped up atmosphere. I remember there was the signs like this is your worst nightmare type of thing. So I hope we get that same energy, but more. To me, this is even more important. Just where this program is, like they have to win this game. They need to get like this kind of stigma out of their way. I'm not saying that beating Colorado is going to get them over the hump or something, but it is one of those. It just feels like a big game, and it's going to be early in the season. Colorado might have a loss already because they're playing North Dakota State week 1 on a Thursday night, which is not going to be an easy matchup for those guys. But it just feels to me like Nebraska needs this win to really build some momentum and just to have the confidence that like, hey, we can play with a team on a big stage and we can come out and perform the way that we're supposed to perform, because they have not done that. Even last year, I mean, they had a lot of great moments and they made a lot of progress, but they just could not finish it off in the biggest games that they played. And so they need to win a quote unquote big game, and this is the first opportunity to do that.
And this game will be on NBC, correct? Not Peacock?
Yeah, this will be on NBC Sports. I think you can still watch it on Peacock if you want
Well,
to,
I'm not doing that, and I know a lot of
but
people aren't doing that.
yeah, Peacock
So,
sucks.
so NBC is good. So for anybody asking and wondering, this game will be on NBC because signing into Peacock, I mean, it is pretty easy to get on my PlayStation, but it's just annoying. Not to go into my back in my day, channels were on 4, 5, and 7, and games were blah blah blah. But it is annoying sometimes because you just have to pay for extra streaming services. So
Yeah, I mean, and it didn't stream the best last year at times, so
no, not
hopefully
at
that
all.
they have improved that. I haven't watched a ton. I guess I did watch some Big Ten basketball games on Peacock, but again, they weren't the best. But I don't know, maybe that has more to
Actually, that's
do.
not true. I did watch a Nebraska game on Peacock. I think it was against I can't remember the one where Rink Mast went off back in February. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah, their streaming services is not the best.
it could be better, but they do have The Office, which is awesome on Peacock. And then what's even better is they have The Office Superfan episodes 1 through 7. So you get like, an extra 5 or 6 minutes of, stuff that was cut out from The Office, and it's just magic. It's hilarious. I love that. I mean, if you love The Office,
Yeah,
definitely check it out. You definitely in those first 7 seasons get some extra Michael Scott and just everybody. It's really funny. So at any rate, you can get that, and you can get, some Big Ten sporting events. Although if you want to watch everything, then you probably need BTN Plus, that's the one that really triggers me. Peacock
yeah.
doesn't trigger me so much as BTN. It's like I already have to pay for the Big Ten network, and you made me pay for Peacock to get these games, and on top of that, I have to get BTN Plus. So, and then I've heard the announcing is really bad on BTN Plus, so I haven't gone that route. Probably won't. Usually if it's on BTN Plus, I just go to the radio. So that's where I go. But this game, I'm really excited about it. We haven't got a ton. I don't think we've got the UTEP kickoff. I think this is the only kickoff time we have so far, unless I'm mistaken. I'm sure the Iowa game's going to be, the traditional time, so I wouldn't expect that to change. Um, Thinking about some of these other games, that wouldn't shock me. If we had that Ohio State game in a prime time, NBC Sports matchup, that could be a big noon
Yeah.
kickoff too, because that's kind of the one thing that's interesting about being a Big Ten team is that the number one spot is that big noon kickoff spot. So, if Nebraska and Ohio State, if Joe Klatt's talking about how they could potentially be undefeated for that game, now that I'm thinking about it, Fox Sports probably going to take that one. So that'll probably be a big noon kickoff. I'm trying to think the other marquee matchups that we have, but there's going to be some opportunity, like that Wisconsin game would surprise me if that was a night game again. They love playing that game as a night game, or that could
Well,
be
they've been good games lately, so
they have been, or that could be a CBS 3:30 game, which actually is somewhat interesting that the CBS is going to be broadcasting the Big Ten championship this year. So that'll be a little bit different from years past, which Fox has kind of had the stranglehold on that game, I think, almost ever since it's been created.
yeah.
So,
I prefer the CBS broadcast myself. I don't know, because I always like watching the SEC championship on CBS broadcast. So that'll be interesting. And then, of course, there was another Big Ten game announced the same day as Nebraska, Michigan, and Fresno State on August 31st as part of their Big Ten Saturday night package. Go
yeah,
Bulldogs! But that's it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, and then Michigan will play Texas on the big noon
That's
on
gonna be a good one.
the same day as the Nebraska Colorado game. So, and then I think also that weekend. So I think I'm pretty sure I'm almost positive, and I could be wrong unless this is a season opener. But I think that weekend there's Texas, Michigan, then I believe Wisconsin and Alabama on CBS, and then you get Nebraska, Colorado. So that's why the Big Ten, built itself the way that it did and invested so much in getting TV contracts because you have three marquee games, all with Big Ten teams, and it's going to be that way almost every Saturday. The SEC's too now that Oklahoma and Texas are in there. So we're in the brand new world, and what's great about it is that Texas and Michigan, it's going to be a great game, but really it's a chance for each team to build their resume because we're in the 12-team playoff now. So it's not, do or die. And we'll see how that impacts Nebraska. I've even seen, people are still talking about the playoff with Nebraska, which I don't think is unrealistic, but let's just I'm just so sick of we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I know I'm one of the worst people of that, but I just need to see them actually freaking do it on the field. I just want to see them do it starting with this Colorado game. That's why it's a must win, because if not, it's just going to be that same old, we're cursed, can't win big games, yada, 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 yada. I just can't deal with it anymore. They need to end it finally.
And then I'll see all the angry tweets and stuff like that. And yeah, I can't do it anymore. It doesn't make any fun, but yeah, no, this is gonna be the first 2 weeks of the season. Usually, you get to ease into things and kind of just build your strengthen your record. Not the case for many teams over the first couple weeks, but it's good for the fans because I remember the Texas Alabama game last year was really good, and that was September 8th, I believe it was. So I mean, it's good to get some marquee matchups in early, and it helps build hype for the rest of the season, and it could be a catalyst for the rest of the way for some of these teams.
And that's what we should be seeing, some of the best teams playing each other. That's what college football should be about. And that those types of matchups should be encouraged. I feel like they will be more with the 12 and soon to be 14 team playoff, especially since the SEC and Big Ten are like going to be guaranteed certain spots, which I don't like that, but that's just the way of the world. And they own so much money and they have such big control that they just kind of demanded it. But at the same time, like the Big 12 is guaranteed spots too. So in the ACC. So, I mean, they did give up things, but I just don't like the idea of guaranteeing a spot to anybody. I just think it should
Yeah,
be, your conference champ, your five best conference champions, your power four, and then, the top rank from the group of five. And then the other, I think the rest should just all be at large picks. And I really doubt that there's going to be any year where the Big Ten or SEC don't get in a 14 team playoff, don't get
right,
four teams
right.
because if you're in the Big Ten, the nice thing is once it goes to 14, if you're in the Big Ten, if you go 9-3, like you're probably making the playoffs. So, I mean, that's why when people are like, yeah, Nebraska can get to the playoff. It's not unrealistic to say that Matt Rule can get this team to the playoff because it's not going to take 11-1 or 12-1 season like it did before. And it could happen this year. You never know. I mean, the schedule's there if everything comes together, but I mean, it's really a lot about Dylan Raiola. And one thing that's also interesting about Dylan Raiola is that he is one of the main reasons that David Sanders is on campus this past weekend. They have a very close relationship, and I think that he played a key role in getting him here. And it sounds like that Nebraska did another great job with David Sanders. His family was blown away by the visit, according to Damon Benning, who was actually on the same, kind of recruiting trip because Caleb visited last weekend, even though he already signed with Nebraska. So that was kind of an interesting perspective. And the Huskers are knocking it out of the park with their visits. I mean, Broderick Shull, another guy ranked in the top 200, went into the weekend with Auburn as the leader, came out with saying that Nebraska is the co-lead. So did Nebraska, in your opinion, Dave, do you think they did enough with David Sanders or what needs to happen next, for them to actually land his commitment?
A winning season and clear development on the offensive line. And there has been development last year, but as a player, you kind of want to see where you fit. And so I think another strong season from the line this year. And because let's be completely honest here, whether it was inconsistencies with the entire coaching staff or whatever, Donovan Raiola struggled in 2022. He did a lot better job in 2023, both in terms of coaching on the field and in recruiting. And now if he can put together another solid season with the line in 2024, combined with the overall team wins and like we just talked about, maybe even a playoff berth, then I think, Nebraska's in a good spot. I mean, the fact that, Sanders' family was blown away by the visit, and, the fact that, it seems like everything's trending in the right direction for him. I think it's a very positive sign. If they can just have another solid, I shouldn't say another solid, but a solid season this year, then I think they're in very good shape. I mean, because the talent is going to be there starting this year. Now it's just about putting it together.
And there were some interesting things where Sanders is the highest ranked player to ever visit Nebraska. That's what the staff, told his family, which I guess would be true since Dylan Raiola's ranking dropped like a little bit. He was like 12th or 15th, I think, or whatever when he came to visit in December. But I
That's
mean,
interesting.
and so Sanders is number 2 because he's number 2 overall in the 2025 class. He's the number 1 offensive tackle. So I mean, he really is like the top of the cream of the crop, whatever you want to say. He's big time, and they said he would be a game changer, and he would, because you could have him at left tackle. You could have Grant Bricks at right tackle. I mean, in the future, you could have Tamu inside, Gibson Pyle inside.
That's a
Some of
nice line.
one of these other guys at center. I mean, that's a sounds like a Big Ten championship contending offensive line right there behind, to protect a 5-star quarterback. So at any rate, I do think that there's a chance there. I think they got to get him on campus a couple more times. Clemson is, I guess the favorite at this point, and they're the closest they're kind of the big power in that area. He's from Charlotte. He plays at Providence Day. They're South Carolina,
Yeah.
really kind of close in proximity, but he's kind of been all over the place, and his recruitment hasn't been, super flashy. And I think Nebraska's right there in the mix. I know that the family said they haven't seen a better visit than this. And in terms of facilities and stuff, that's probably true. I don't know if that's going to get it, over the top. I mean, because everybody says that, Nebraska has the best facilities. I think that they do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get David Sanders. But if they can get him back, this summer for the cookout, and then if they can get him for a game this season and they have success, like you're talking about on the field, and he can see that and feel that energy of Lincoln Memorial Stadium on a game day, I think that would be a formula where I could see them landing his commitment this fall, because I don't think doesn't seem like he's anywhere close to a decision.
No, and it's kind of interesting, like you just said. He hasn't been flashy about his recruitment at all. He's kind of kept things quiet, but we'll see. I think Nebraska is very, very much in play. I think Nebraska has a good shot at landing him. I don't think he was just, blowing smoke up everyone's butt. I think he really liked Nebraska. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, that would be another huge get for this offensive line, and he's a man child. He's just so sturdy and so well taught. He's very technically sound, and um, you know, 6'6", 270 pounds. You can work with that pretty well on the offensive line, and just the fact, honestly, not that we like to play for consolation prizes and trophies, but just the fact that he was able to visit campus, and Nebraska got a 5-star lineman on campus, especially when you consider what our line was, let's say 4 years ago, even 3 and 2 years ago. That's a victory in of itself.
Yeah, just a guy that, super long arms too, 36-inch arms. I mean, that is incredible. You can't draw it up better than that. He's got great feet. And the thing I like about him is, 6'6", 270. So, I mean, he's got a lot of frame to grow. You could add 30 pounds to this guy and he would still, he's one of those guys that would be like 300 pounds, but still looks like an athlete. That's what you want at left tackle. Like if you could go into, make a machine where you could punch in things to give you attributes for the perfect left tackle, and he would just come out of like a machine, like a
Yep.
Frankenstein or something. That would be David Sanders. Like he literally is the model of what you want as a left tackle. It's going to obviously take him a time to get adjusted, but I do think that Donovan Raiola has really developed as a coach on the field and as a recruiter, like you said. And part of that, I think, is having an experienced and a good head coach, because good head coaches, they develop not only their players, but they develop their assistant coaches. And that's something that Scott Frost did not do very well. I don't think he managed his staff well at all, and that was one of his downfalls, I think, at Nebraska. And Matt Rule, I think, is the exact opposite. He wants these guys to come have success. He wants everybody on his staff to move on and be a head coach and do all those things, but you know, like Garrett McGuire, maybe he'll be a head coach somewhere else someday, but the only way that's going to happen is if he creates a lot of successful things at Nebraska with the wide receivers and whatever happens in the future. And I think it's the same thing with Donovan Raiola. He's helped him become a better offensive line coach. And because of that, Nebraska is a better program. And it's just the way there's so many ways that Matt Rule makes your program better and has made Nebraska football better. And I think developing his coaching staff and getting the most out of these assistants is one of the ways that he does that better than most.
He's made it exciting too. I mean, just I can't remember, being any more excited in terms of recruiting than these last 2 years, and it's made the normal boring summer months a lot more fun to write about, and there's a lot more excitement. I was just talking with somebody last night, and they noted the excitement around the program. They noted, the fact that there's this buzz around the program now, and for what it's worth, I'm seeing Nebraska in a lot more of these, top 3 finalists, top 5 finalists. So I don't think, all the hype and Nebraska's generating buzz. I don't think it's just people trying to put, words out there. I think the recruits see it too.
Yeah, and the way that they go about it, I think really helps. And they're like, hey, Nebraska's not for everybody, but here's what we have. Here's, we're going to offer you this opportunity. Here's the things that we can offer you to help you get better, whether it's the nutrition stuff, the weight room stuff, the coaching staff. And it's like, hey, this is our culture. This is how we do things. Do you want to be a part of this? Is this the best thing for you? And I think that the way that they sell it really does, hit home with a lot of people. Not everybody is going to choose Nebraska, but it ended up working with Dylan Raiola and Daniel Kalen and some of these other guys. And, because even then, I mean, Matt Rule, even with Dylan Raiola, was like, hey, is this, he wanted to take that visit instead of just, becoming the used car salesman and saying whatever it took to get him in the door to get that sale. He's like, hey, just be sure about this. Be sure this is the correct thing that you want to do. And I think that the way he goes about that, I mean, same with Daniel Kalen, that honesty, being upfront. There's no BS with Nebraska, and I think that that's one reason why they've resonated so much. And they're building a talented program. Matt Rule is a proven winner, and once more of that success starts to happen on the field, which I think will happen this year, the recruiting should continue to trend up. I think there's no reason that Nebraska can't, be in the top 15 every single year in the recruiting rankings. I truly believe that.
And it's a domino effect. The commitment of TJ Lateef is going to be enticing for future wide receivers who want to come here. I mean, they're building the offensive line, not only for right now, but for the future. They've shown a commitment to building the offensive line. You look at, the recruits that they're trying to get at running back. I mean, and then on the defensive side of the football, you're looking at a strong developer on the defensive line in Terrence Knighton. You have a good, probably one of the best in the country defensive coordinators in Tony White. So there's a lot of different attractive pieces of this program for both sides of the football. And, it's starting to really kind of all come together. It's not finished yet by any means, but you're seeing a lot of these, recruits and, potential commits kind of, realize that Nebraska is building something special here.
And it's interesting too, because there are times when the Nebraska coaching staff will offer kids or get them for visits that, don't have the stars or whatever. Nicholas Clayton is a great example that he just visited this past weekend. A 0-star recruit in the composite rankings. He's a 3-star by 24/7, but right after his visit, he gets offered by Florida State and USC. So you're getting to the point where Nebraska is, and we saw that last year too with the defensive lineman that ended up
Carlin Jones.
Yeah, and he went to what, Alabama? Is that where he went?
Ohio State, I believe it was.
Oh yeah, that's right. Ohio State. The running back too that we lost to Ole Miss, Juwan Lacey. So I mean, you're starting to see Nebraska where like players that Nebraska is identifying earlier than others. Now those other programs, the Alabamas of the world, the USCs, they're starting to kind of follow what Nebraska is doing. And I think that, I don't like that they are coming and taking some of our players, but that is going to happen. But what I do like is that Nebraska's evaluations are on point almost every single time. So if Matt Rule and company offer somebody, regardless of what the ranking is, you can generally feel pretty good about that offer because over time, I think their evaluations have proven that they know what they're doing.
And to be honest, I kind of like that Ohio State and Alabama are taking some of our players because that means we're recruiting with the big dogs. It's no longer just this lackadaisical recruiting effort where we go for the low hanging 3-star, the easy pickings. We're now trying to recruit for top tier elite talent, and you have to play the game as a result, the recruiting game. So although I don't like it as it turns to in terms of having to kind of battle with these schools. I do like, playing the recruiting game with some of the top tier programs in the country because, again, that gives Nebraska more exposure too.
Yeah, and I think it does show because sometimes when you prioritize kids early, that does end up making an impact. So I think it shows that Nebraska is very good at identifying talent, which they should be with all the NFL backgrounds and stuff on their coaching staff. But I think that is one of their strong points, and that's something that Michigan did really well under Jim Harbaugh. Evaluate talent, develop it, build the culture. Nebraska's doing all those same things under Matt Rule. So the future is very bright. And yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there today, guys. But it's been an exciting week for Nebraska football recruiting. Keep your eyes peeled for more information. Check out huskerbigred.com. We'll have plenty of updates there. We're going through our kind of spring look back series too, going through some of our positional depth chart kind of predictions going forward. So check that out. And just again, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so. Hit the like button. The channel is for hardcore Husker fans. So if that's you, hit subscribe. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.